And we can see here that it's the game section. So yeah, I'm going to be doing prep test 59 game section, and that's probably also the title of this video. So anyways, okay, let's just get into it. So a law firm has 7 departments. So I'm just going to right away start writing those guys down just by the first initial. So family law, health law, injury law, labor law, probate, securities, and tax. So FHILPST, that's our 7 departments. The firm is to occupy a building with 3 floors. Okay, so we do have top, middle, bottom, and we'll just arrange those in the most like convenient order. So that matches the first question, and it's nice because it actually also matches you know, our visual of what we would think of as top, middle, bottom, right? So sometimes those don't match up exactly, like they might have then top in a straight line in the first question. So it is nice that they've actually written them out from the top to the bottom. Okay. So each floor can accommodate up to 4 departments. So we have a maximum of 4 departments per floor. Okay, maximum. And no department can be on more than 1 floor. So that does mean that we're going to just use each department once. So we can't like split them up, you know? Okay, so that does give us the possibility, like, I do think it's important to think about the distribution of the players among the positions. So in this case, of course, we don't have a 1-to-1 ratio of players to positions. We have 7 players and only 3 potential positions, like 3 different floors, right? So we're definitely going to have to put more than 1 department on at least one of the floors. But we also have the option of having 0 departments on one of the floors at this point. So that's kind of important to note. So we could have like 4 on one of the floors, 3 on another floor, and then 0 on another floor at this point anyways. And when we get into the individual rules, that might change. Okay, so probate must be on the same floor as tax law. So P and T are just, these guys are just stuck together. No. So anything that happens to P is also going to happen to T and vice versa. All right. Health must be on the floor immediately above injury. Okay. So H immediately above I. So that gives me 2 options for these players. We either have H on top, I on the middle, or H in the middle, I on the bottom. Okay, so this means that the middle floor is always going to have at least 1 player on it, right? And either H or I for sure is going to have to be in the middle. Okay, so that's an important deduction to make there. Labor law must occupy an entire floor by itself. So L is completely by itself. So that actually can be combined with the information about H and I to tell us that we are going to use all 3 floors. So if H is on top, I is in the middle, then L would be by itself on the bottom. If H is in the middle and I is on the bottom, then L would have a floor to itself on the top. Okay, so those are the distributions that we can have for H, I, and L. So we'll just add that's the top. Here's the middle. Oh. So those, if we wanted to have like two different worlds, those would be the worlds that we would have. And we would make sure that we know where L is. That's it. We can't have anything else there. Okay, so that section is done. That also tells me that L can't be in the middle, right? So that's fairly valuable information to know. We do have wildcards, so we do have players that are not mentioned in the rules, but they aren't true wildcards because the information that we have about L would mean that that floor is completely occupied. So even if a particular player is a wild card, they actually can't just go anywhere because we can never add them to a floor that L is already on. So F is never mentioned specifically in the rules, and S is never mentioned specifically in the rules. So those guys would be our wild cards for this game. Okay, so he's over here. Yeah, so F is wild and S is wild. I do want to address that I used really similar notation here for L and also for P and T. So when P and T are together, that doesn't actually mean that they're the only ones on that floor. Whereas with L here, L is the only one on that floor. So it might help to have like different notation there, or just maybe to put like an X next to the floor that L is on. So L is by itself and nobody else is what the X is saying. Okay, nothing else can be there. So yeah, maybe that would be helpful in your own diagram. Yeah, so that would be enough for me moving into the questions. And I will actually go through the questions now as well, because I do want to do this whole section. So which one of the following could be the assignment of departments to floors? So yeah, I would look to have either HIL or LHI. So this one we have I and H mixed up. Okay. So that's not great. We can see in the other ones we have health before injury. Oh, but here it's not immediately above, so that's a problem. Eliminate that one. Here, labor doesn't have a floor to itself. Eliminate that one. Okay. So we're down to B versus C. Probate has to be on the same floor as tax. Here it's not. So the correct answer is C. I'm going to write that out in my format. So we've got HPT, middle, FIS, at bottom, labor. Okay, so probate and tax are on the same floor. Health is immediately above injury. Labor has a floor entirely to itself, so follows all of the rules. And we're not going over the maximum of the maximum of 4 per floor. Okay, cool. So that's one acceptable solution for our bank of acceptable solutions. Maybe it comes in handy later. We'll see. If injury and probate are both assigned to the middle floor. Okay, so that's not the case here, but let's see what we can deduce from that information, right? So that's a question specific condition. So we want to, make sure that we're adding that information first before we even look at the question they're asking us. We can go ahead and add this information and then apply the rules and figure out what we can know for sure based on that. So P and T are always together. So T would be with P there in the middle. H is going to be on top so that it's one floor immediately above I. And L is going to have the bottom to itself. I only have one potential spot left in the middle. I do have 3 potential spots left on top. And then here, of course, I can't add any more because L has to be on its own. So the players that I have left to place are F and S, are wild cards. And so they could be on the top or the middle. They can't both be on the middle, but one of them could be there. So A is the correct answer here. That could be true. Just going through the others to show why they're wrong. Health can't be on the middle because I is on the middle. Health has to be on the floor immediately above. L can't be on top because H has to be there and L has to be alone. S can't be on the bottom because L is there, and it has to be on its own. This is also a good reminder that S is not a true wild card in the sense that it can't just be anywhere at any time. So the fact that L is on the bottom does mean that securities can't be on the bottom. Tax is assigned to the top floor. No, tax has to be with probate, so it has to be in the middle. Okay, but we do have an acceptable solution here, and we can almost think about it as multiple acceptable solutions because we have options with where to place our wild cards here. Okay. Okay, so this next question asks which one of the following cannot be the assignment for any of the floors. So I would kind of go through and be looking for something that's clearly breaking a rule. So I don't see labor in any of these. That would be a rule break. I'm not really concerned about my wild cards, right? So family being added isn't really an issue. Securities being added, not really an issue. But if we do have a floor that has multiple players in it, then it's going to be a floor that has either H or I in it, because the other floor has to have just L. So if I see one that doesn't have H and doesn't have I, then actually that one is not going to be allowed because I need to split them up so that H is above I, right? If I put family, probate, securities, and tax together, yeah, probate and tax together, that's good. Family and securities are both wild. That's fine. But we've hit our maximum here. And so if we try to put that, for example, if we try to put that in the middle, well, then we would have to put H and I together so that L could have a floor by itself and H and I can't be together. Okay, so that's why C is the correct answer here and why it can't work. And we can notice that there is something, at least about this one, that's a little bit strange, which is that we have both of our wild cards here. And in the other ones, we only have one wild card. We still have probate and tax, like probate and tax are in all of them, right? So that's something that stays the same, probate and tax. Right. And then we have double wild card here, and we don't have either health or injury, whereas in the other ones, we have exactly one of health or injury, which of course are involved in a rule together. And yeah, so you can kind of notice that in the pattern, this is sort of the odd one out. If you understand what players work together, what players have rules together, it's a little bit more obvious that C is kind of the odd one out in this list. And then when you look into it further, you can test it and recognize, oh, there's no way I can actually make that work, because that's going to put health and injury together. That's not allowed. Right, if family is assigned to the same floor as securities. Okay, so family and securities are together. So that means that they must be with either H or I. Okay, so L has to be on its own, and then H or I has to be with F and S. And we would also put P and T in a different one because there wouldn't be room for both P and T, right? We just saw that that's not going to work, right? That would hit our maximum. And then, we'd have to put H and I together, which we can't do. So we would have P and T with either H or I, and F and S with either H or I, and then L would be on its own. So this isn't the order of the floors, but this is the composition of the floors, like the players that could be together. So this one almost like has a bit of a grouping element, like each floor is a group, and then a sequencing element because we actually have to order the floors from top to bottom. So this is one composition, but like we could also put L on top and put these guys, bottom, middle. So going through here, we're looking for something that could be true. So the other things will be rule breakers. So let's see how they break rules. So exactly one department is assigned to the middle floor. That's never allowed because then L would break up H and I, and H has to be immediately above I. Exactly 4 departments assigned to the middle floor. In this scenario, we would never hit that maximum of 4 because if we try to put F, S, and P and T together, then we don't have room for H and I. And yeah, so it has to be set at 3 in one group and 3 in another, and then L on its own. So we can't have 4 departments assigned to any. Exactly 2 departments assigned to the bottom. No, we can never have just 2. And exactly 3 assigned to the bottom, that is allowed. So this is another time where we actually have multiple acceptable solutions because these guys can be switched all around. So maybe I just want to kind of draw squiggles. Those guys can switch, and L could be moved to the top. So there's some variation there. And if probate is assigned to the middle, along with 2 other departments. So that's actually what we have here, right? Probate in the middle with 2 other departments. So if probate's in the middle, it would have to be with, again, either H or I, and yeah, so we kind of already have this as an example, but let's actually write out what we know to be true here, because here we actually know probate's in the middle, therefore tax is in the middle. And then on top, so probate could have H, and then I would be on the bottom, and F and S would end up being together again because probate has exactly 2 other floors with it, and L would be on top. That's one example, but I also want to show the other example because there I made a choice to put H with P and T. So here I'm going to put I with P and T, which means H has to be on top, F and S would be on top with H, and on the bottom we would have L. So those are my 2 options. So what would have to be true for sure is that F and S have to be together. But let's see, F is immediately above H. Not necessarily. F is immediately below L. Not, that's actually not possible. Family is assigned to the same floor as securities. Yeah, that's the correct answer. P is assigned to the same floor as health. That's possible, but doesn't have to be true. P is assigned to the same floor as injury. Possible, but doesn't have to be true. So those are kind of like 2 sides of the same coin. And, those are showing the 2 different options. Yeah, okay, so that's the first game. I'm going to go ahead and move on to game 2. Clear my notes. All right. So a museum curator is arranging 7 photographs. We have 7 players again. F, G, H, I, K, L, and M, 7 photographs. We can actually see that it looks like we're dealing with a 1-line, linear game, right? So just a sequence on a single line based on the first question, which one of the following could be the positions from 1st to 7th in which the photographs are hung. So we can look to the first question often as like a clue to how to set up the game. But we're going to still, of course, read the whole scenario. So they're arranging 7 photographs on a gallery wall in accordance with the photographer's requirements. The photographs are to be hung along in a row in 7 positions, sequentially numbered from 1st to 7th. Great. Okay, so we definitely are dealing with that sort of arrangement. Okay, just a more simple sequencing game. G has to be immediately before K. So put those guys together, box them up. H has to be somewhere before K, but can't be first. So H has to be somewhere before K, which means it's going to be somewhere before this whole block, right? G has to be immediately before K. So H is definitely before G, right? Yeah, it's got to be before that block, but H can't be first. So there's at least one player before H. We don't know what it is, but there's at least one player before H so that H is not first. I'm also going to kind of double up on that and say H is not first. You could also put H crossed out under the first position. That would be a good idea. I and L have to be next to each other. We do not know what order. So this is how I would write that rule, right? So they are a block together, but we don't know which order they're in. Magnolia must be one of the first 3 photographs. So here, Magnolia is one of the first 3. I'm going to draw a little box there. And just say M is one of those first 3. And fence has to be either first or 7th. Okay, so that's when I would split worlds just to show the 2 options for fence. Do I have to continue and show all of the other options? No, I don't have to do that. Yeah, so that's not really an issue. It might be interesting to do it to kind of see what the options are. But yeah, it's probably going to be too time consuming if you're under the time pressure of the game. So it could be a good exercise for practice, but yeah, not necessarily something that you're going to want to be doing under timed conditions. Okay, oh, that's Jasper. Hey, baby. You're okay, little one. Good birch. Okay, so let's go rule by rule and find the rule breakers. Okay, so G immediately before K. A already breaks that, so we can eliminate that. H somewhere before K, but not first. Ooh, B breaks that, so we can eliminate B. I and L have to be next to each other. That doesn't happen in D. M must be one of the first 3. Okay, that's true in both C and E. F has to be either first or 7th. Ooh. E breaks that, so it's got to be C. Let's write that out for our bank of acceptable solutions. I, L, M, H, G, K, F. So there's one acceptable solution for our bank. Put a big check mark next to it so that we don't forget that it's there. And we can move on. If Irises is immediately before gardenias, okay. I immediately before G, what could be true? So what do we know about I and G? Well, we know that I is immediately next to L. So L would be in front there. And we know that G is right before K. What else do we know about them? We know that H has to be before K. So it would have to be before that whole group. And we know that it would have to have at least one player in front of it. And then we know that F is either first or last. So this one player before H could be F, but it could also be M. Yeah, so M would have to be either before H here, or it could be between H and L, and then F could be in front. So we could have F, H, M, L, I, G, K, or we could have M, H, L, I, G, K. Or we could, yeah, that's it actually, because M has to be one of the first 3. So M is not wild. I misspoke there. M is definitely not wild. M has to be one of the first 3, so it is restricted. Okay, so what could be true? Could G be 4th? No. Could H be 4th? No. Could I be 3rd? Nope. Could L be 2nd? Nope. Could M be 3rd? Yes. So we have that example there, and then we can use these guys for our bank of acceptable solutions. Put them over here, stamp them with some check marks. Moving on, where each photograph is hung is fully determined if which one of the following is true. Okay, so let's see. So L being first seems kind of interesting to me, just because someone taking the first place means that we know for sure where F is. Whereas in these other ones, are we going to know for sure if F is first or third? And yeah, not sure about that. So I'm actually going to try D first, because it gives me two pieces of information. It both tells me like where I is, right? So even C with irises being second doesn't tell me where L is, because L could be first or third in that situation. So if L is first, it tells me where I is, and that also tells me where F is. So yeah, L is first, I is second, F is seventh, and then what do I have in the middle? Well, I'm going to have to put M third. So it also tells me where M is. And then what do I have left over? H, G, and K. H has to be before G and K. So D is the correct answer. Okay, so I was able to save quite a bit of time there, because from my experience and pattern recognition, I notice that L being first is going to be very valuable because of the rule of dealing with L, and that any player being first is going to tell me that F is last. Yeah, whereas G being fourth, I'm like, okay, well, that tells me where K is, but besides that, it's not really giving me that much information. H being second, it tells me very little. And I actually have two different worlds already where H is second. So I know for sure that H being second doesn't fully determine the positions of any of the players really, right? So if H is second, F could be first or last, M could be first or third, L could be third or fourth, they all still have options. So this looks like a really good option. Also, Magnolia being third, I have two different solutions, and now a third one where M is third. So M being third would still leave lots of options open for the other players, and where they're hung is not fully determined. So if L is first, there's only one possible solution, and the position of each photograph is fully determined. If Magnolia is second, okay. So M second, do we have an example of that already? We do not. Okay, so what can't be true? Well, let's see. So M is second. We could just go ahead and do, start splitting worlds. Okay. So we have this extra information. We can just go ahead and start splitting worlds. So here, which player could be first? Ooh, so it can't be L, it can't be I, because they have to be next to another player. Can't be H can never be first. And it can't be G or K because H has to be ahead of them. And yeah, so definitely F is going to have to be first here. So that's a good way to just sort of test things, is to start splitting worlds immediately. You get that new information and you go, okay, well, I can add, I have these two options. And so you have already narrowed it down significantly. And then we have H, GK, and LI. So one option that we would have would be to put LI in some orientation here, and then have HGK at the end. Or we could try to put H as soon as possible, and we could put H immediately before and then GKLI, or we could have LI between F and GK. So there are lots of options here. So I'm just showing a bunch of them. But yeah, we do have those blocks of players. So we can either start with L and I, or we can start with H. Okay, so H definitely cannot be fourth. Could be third, right? So right after M, or it could be fifth, where we have two players between M and H, but it can't be fourth because there isn't one single individual player that could be between M and H. We just have blocks of players plus H left over. And then we have a bunch of acceptable solutions here. Not all of the acceptable solutions, actually, where M is second, there are a lot of them, but a decent number of the acceptable solutions. And we can always note that L and I can be switched. Okay, so all of those are acceptable. And then we have a substitution question. Okay, so what could be substituted for the condition that H has to be somewhere before K? Well, G and K are stuck together, so H somewhere before G would help. H can't be the first photograph, so we definitely need to take care of that part as well. So there has to be at least one player in front of H. Yeah, so we could first use the must be true test, right? Which is just which of the following must be true. So that's going to eliminate anything that is too restrictive. So if F is seventh, then H is second. We have an example where that's not true. So we can eliminate A because it doesn't actually have to be true according to the original rules. G is somewhere after H. That is true, right? So that's going to help with that. And either F or M is first. L or I could also be first. So that one doesn't work, right? That doesn't have to be true either. H has to be somewhere between the first and sixth photographs. Well, that means that H isn't first, but it doesn't do enough to restrict. So this one is true. It passes the must be true test. It is not restrictive enough though. So the must be true test will work if the rule is too restrictive, but it won't work if the rule is too permissive. So this rule is too permissive. So it passes the must be true test, but it's not the correct answer because it doesn't tell me that H has to be before K. Unless H is second. Okay. So if not second, then somewhere between M and G. Okay, so then we have to have H somewhere between M and G. H, G, K. This won't work because we know G and K are stuck together. So the only option we would have would be to put M before H, which is before G and K. We could still have F in front of them. Or I and L, or L and I in front of them. So I think this one looks good, actually. Very strange rule, but it does look good. And then if that's not the case, right? So if we have, yeah, if we don't have it between those two, so if not, okay, then H is second, which would mean it would end up having to be before G and K anyways. So we would end up with M third and F first, right? We'd have FHM. So either we have this arrangement or we would have FHM at the beginning. Is that true? FHM, MHGK, MHGK. Oh, we could also, like, H could be second and we could have M first, and that would be fine as well. Right, so M first, H second. I mean, the real contrapositive here would just have H in second place, and then we would have a couple options with that. So D is looking like the correct answer here. I do like D. It does seem to be true, and it seems to be dealing with the ordering, and also dealing with H has to be before G and K. Really, really odd way to do that, but looks like that's the correct answer. I'm just gonna take a look at this. So K is somewhere after H. Yes, that, H before K takes care of that part, which must be somewhere after F. So H has to be somewhere after F. F is before H. That's not always true. So this one doesn't pass the must be true test. So we can eliminate A, B, and E based on the must be true test. C passes the must be true test, but doesn't deal with H having to be before K. And actually, H doesn't, it can't be sixth as well. Like H can't be sixth because it has to be before G and K as a group. So it's kind of it still does have to be true. Like it does have to be somewhere between first and sixth. Wait, somewhere between first and sixth? Yeah, that one doesn't even deal with H can't be first. Does it? Or is between first and sixth meaning it has to be from second to fifth? Huh, interesting. Hi, Pee-Pee. It's bedtime, sweetheart. Yeah, so that's kind of a curious one, noting whether this one even has to be true or not. Somewhere between. I guess between does mean that it would be anywhere from position 2 to position 5, which is true. So it still does pass the must be true test. Yes, so between would mean like 2, 3, 4, 5, because those are the numbers between first and sixth. Sorry, I got myself turned around there. D is the correct answer here. Okay, so complicated, but it does have to be true, and it will keep H before G and K. Yeah, involving M there is really interesting. Because M has to be one of the first three, so that's an interesting player to bring in. G, we would expect that because G and K are stuck together, so we would definitely expect that G could be connected to this rule through K. But yeah, M is a really interesting one to bring in, but that is going to, it's going to help us keep H before G, right? Because if H is between M and G, then H can't be before M, because then G and K would be before H, and that would push M to fourth place, at least, right? And M can't be fourth. It has to be anywhere from 1 to 3. So this helps us make sure that H is before G and K, but would also help us make sure that H isn't first if it's not second. Yeah, really, really interesting. Very interesting substitution question. Okay, I'm going to clear these and we'll keep moving. So I would definitely recommend, pausing and and taking breaks here. I would also recommend fast forwarding through some of this. Like you can watch it at double time or time and a half or something like that on YouTube. So yeah, just so that you're not spending too much time with me just kind of rambling about things that maybe don't apply to you in your particular situation. But sometimes I like to do full sections with you to just get like a feel for all of the difficulty within a section. Okay, so Alicia will take exactly 4 courses this semester, and she's choosing from 7. Wow, again, we have 7 players. That's been the case in all of things so far. Oh, so we have statistics at 9, and we also have statistics at 3. So S9 and S3 will be those players. So we get to 7. I'll put commas in between these guys just to make it a little bit more readable. Oh, wait, what? Okay, sorry. And then world history. Ooh. So 7 courses, but we actually end up with 8 options because we have stats at 9 and stats at 3. That's interesting. Huh. Okay, so we are actually going to have 4 out in a sense. Okay, and you can't take any course more than once per semester. Yeah, so like if you take stats, you're not going to take it twice. So that tells me that if she chooses stats 9, then stats 3 is out. If she chooses stats 3, then stats 9 is out. So that's included within the scenario up here. Because of university requirements and time conflicts, yada, yada. Okay, so we're choosing 4 to be in and 4 to be out. We could have that she doesn't take stats at all. So both stats 3 and stats 9 are out. Okay. All right. She must take Japanese if she doesn't take Russian. So if no Russian, then Japanese. If no Japanese, then Russian. She takes either Japanese or Russian. Could take both at this point. She cannot take Japanese if she takes macroeconomics. So if M, no J, and no M. So at least one of those 2 has to be out. It's possible she takes neither of them. But yeah, if she takes M, then she doesn't take J, then she does take R. And if she doesn't take R, then she takes J, then she doesn't take M, would be a way that we could link those up. You do not have to do that though. Okay, so my method, I would actually usually not do that because I like to just have as simple as possible a column on the left of the arrow of triggers and on the right of the arrow consequences. If she takes stats at 9, she can't take world history. History, no stats at 9. She must take stats at 9 if she takes psych. And if she doesn't take stats at 9, then she takes psych. So these guys are related to each other, right? So if P, then S9, if S9, then no W, right? And if W, then no S9, if no S9, then no psych. She must take either geography or world history, but cannot take both. A or B, not both, is a biconditional. Okay, so that means that one of them is in and one of them is out. Okay, so if G, then H, but also if no H, then G. If H, then no G, but also if no G, then H. So this is one of those times where we can use a double arrow. That's a biconditional. Okay, so if you're not familiar with biconditionals, that would be something to look up. You could also ask a question about it, and I could make a specific video about biconditionals. But that's one that you can memorize, that if you have the wording of either this or that, but not both, then that is a biconditional where they are always separated. Okay, so what could be the list? And we'll just go rule by rule here. So we have to have either J or R. So B is out. We can't have both J and M. So C is out. We can't have both W and S9, but when it says stats here, we don't know which stats it is. So we can't actually use that rule if it just says statistics. If we have psych, then we have stats 9. So we can't have psych without having statistics. Okay. And what else? Oh yeah, we can't have both geography and history, but we also have to have either geography or history. So D would work. So I'm just going to show what that would look like. So because we have psych, we know that this is stats 9, and we know that stats 3 is out. So S3, what else? J is out. If J is out, R has to be in. That's good. M is out. That is not a trigger, and that's fine. And world history would be out. Yeah, we have, this is stats 9, and therefore world history is out. So actually, if we have psych and stats, we know that that particular stats is stats 9, and therefore world history can't be out. So if psych is in, then world history is out. That would be one circumstance where it would make sense to actually connect those rules, because in this one here, just when they say stats, do you know it's stats 9? Maybe not. But if you know that psych is in, then you know it is stats 9. All right, so that's one acceptable solution. Okay, where the in group is here, and this is the out group. 12, which one of the following could be an accurate list of 3 of the courses that Alicia takes, so that, you know, they could be together. So geography and world history can't be together. J and M can't be together. Psych and world history can't be together. Psych and world history can't be together. Stats can be with world history, but it would be stats 3. So we'd have, yeah, Russian, which doesn't trigger anything. Stats, which only triggers if it's stats 9, but in this case, because we don't have psych, it could be stats 3 and world history. So I'm going to write this one out as well and actually see what I could complete here. So what would have to be out? Okay, so we have to have either J or R in, which we do. We have to have either J or M out, or both of them out. We definitely are going to have stats 9 out. And this is stats 3, and psych will be out. We have to have either G or H in. Oh, did I change between? I did. Sorry. I was using H here instead of W for world history. It should be like that. Sorry about that, my bad. So if W is in, G is out. Okay, and then what do we have left over? We have J and M. So if M is in, J is out. If J is in, then M is out. So one of them would be in and one of them would be out in this situation. So we could have M, or we could have the other one in. Just going to double check that this is fine. So R being in doesn't trigger anything. S3 being in doesn't trigger anything except S9 to be out. W in triggers G to be out. W in triggers S9 to be out, which triggers P to be out. Okay, so that's good. M being in triggers J to be out. That's it. J being in triggers M to be out. That's it. Okay, yeah, so those are both acceptable solutions. In this one, would I do that in a test scenario? Probably not. Okay, so I would do it for the first question because we get like all of the courses that are in, but I wouldn't necessarily do it here. I think that might be a bit time consuming. It may prove handy, but I don't know for sure. So I mean, maybe I would do it. It's only question 12, so I have 4 questions where it could potentially come in handy. So yeah, but I could just do process of elimination there, get the right answer and move on. Which courses Alicia takes is fully determined if she takes Russian and what else? So if she takes Russian and what would fully determine the courses? So I feel like So world history is going to lead to a decent number of things being out. So I might try that. Yeah, but maybe, yeah, maybe I would just go, like, I don't have an obvious, like, there's nothing standing out to me here. So I think I would just, ooh, no, never mind. So Russian and something else. So if it's Russian and stats, that doesn't fully determine, right? I've already seen that here. Oh, this one is already coming in handy. Okay, so yeah, Russian and stats isn't going to be enough because then I could still switch M and J. So I'm going to eliminate stats, but also if I have Russian and world history, it doesn't tell me about M or J. So yeah, those ones I can eliminate. If I have Russian plus psych, then I can say I have an S9 and I don't have W. If I don't have W, I have to have G. So that one's looking good. So I can eliminate A and B based on my acceptable solutions. And then when I try C, it looks promising. So P, if P, then I also have S9. And if I have S9, I don't have W. If I don't have W, I have G. Those are the 4 courses. And that's my solution. And I think that's actually the same as this. So we already have that solution up here. We just didn't know for sure that that was the only possibility if we have R and P, but it turns out it is. Cool. I'm going to just erase that and move on, but that is one way that you could use your bank of acceptable solutions in a fully determined question, right? Is that if you have Russian plus one of these, it's not fully determined if you have more than one solution where that happens. Alicia could take statistics at either of the available times if she takes which one of the following pairs of courses. So if she takes psych, then she can't take S3 because she's already taking S9. And if she takes world history, then she can't take S9. So geography and Japanese. So those would not impact which she takes. If she takes geography, she cannot take world history. So that's not going to impact what her taking statistics at 9, because if she doesn't take world history, that's not a trigger for that rule. And if she takes Japanese, she doesn't take macroeconomics, but that doesn't impact statistics at all. So That would be fine. If she takes stats at 3 and geography, so stats at 3 means that she doesn't take stats at 9. Okay. She's also taking geography, which means that she can't take world history. And since she's taking stats at 3 and not stats at 9, she can't take psych. What else do we have left over? Well, let's see. So if not R, then J. If not J, then R. So I have to have either J or R included. Okay, so leave room for that. If M, then not J. If J, then not M. So either J or M has to be out, and that would completely fill actually the out group. So that means that R has to be in. So she must also take Russian. But yeah, she could take, if she takes Russian, that doesn't trigger anything. So that's fine. So she could take both R and J, or she could take R and M. So this one we would just switch J and M. So I'll show both of those options for our bank. More acceptable solutions. Moving on. Suppose that she must take stats if she takes psych, but rather than being restricted to stats at 9, she can take it at 9 or 3. Oh boy. Okay, so now we don't know that taking psych leads to not taking world history. Okay, because that rule isn't going to be affected. Okay, so this with stats at 9 or stats at 3. So if she doesn't take stats at 9 and she doesn't take stats at 3, then she doesn't take psych. So just because she takes world history doesn't mean she doesn't take psych, because we would also need to rule out stats at 3. So what could be the courses that she takes? She could take psych, statistics, and world history. Could she also take Russian? Yeah, that doesn't cause any problems. And we would need to have either Russian or Japanese included. J and M are both out, that's fine. Yeah, she takes world history, so no geography. That one looks good to me. This one I think would still break a rule. What rule would it break? If she takes M, she can't take J. If she doesn't take J, she has to take R. So this one doesn't include J and also doesn't include R, so it breaks rule 1. M, P, R, and W. So if she takes psych, she's supposed to take stats. If she takes psych, she's supposed to take stats. D as well. G and W can't be together. So A would now be acceptable, whereas it wasn't acceptable before this change in conditions. So I'm just going to go ahead and show that answer. All right. Clearing, and let's check these out. So an organization will host its first 6 annual meetings in exactly 6 cities, using each city only once. All right. So this one actually looks like just an order from 1 to 6. So even though it's the last game, I don't think it's going to be that difficult. Usually the last 2 games are significantly more difficult than the first 2, but this one is looking like it's actually not that bad. I would definitely have, if I were under time pressure, I would have tried to do this game before doing game 3, because this one has more questions. Yeah, also it has exactly 4 rules, which tends to be more like typical, but yeah, this one actually doesn't look too bad just because it is a single line sequencing game. Okay, so L has to be in some year after the year in which Toronto was used. Vancouver must be immediately before or immediately after Washington. The meeting in Toronto must be separated from the meeting in Montreal by meetings in exactly 2 other cities. The meeting in Vancouver must be separated from the meeting in Los Angeles by meetings in exactly 2 other cities. Okay, so I mean, this one, you could kind of, draw this out and like draw out all the options, but there are just going to be so many options. You have a decent number of players, but yeah, just the number of options is going to be pretty tough. I mean, it is doable, but it's just a lot. So yeah, I'm kind of like contemplating it because it would be kind of interesting, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave it. Leave it for now. I will say though that these rules are going to interact because T has to be before L. Oh, I didn't mean to take that out. So that's kind of interesting. So like, for example, we can't have these 2 things be true at the same time because then L would end up before T. So that might be actually a way to split this up so that we have, yeah, so like if we have T space M, we could then have L here and V here, that, and then we'd have to have W, and then this would be our remaining player, which is N, which is never, like it's a wild card. So that's one option. So maybe I'll just create like a few acceptable solutions instead of all of the acceptable solutions, just to kind of show the range and how the worlds work together. So if we have M space T, then L has to be after. So we have to have V before L. So we could have V here, and then we'd have to have W here, and we'd have to have N here. So that's another option, right? Significantly different one. I'm trying to show some variety in my acceptable solutions at the outset. What haven't I done? So I could do the combination of T before M and V before L, but where I have V, oh, and then T could be here, and then we have W here and N here. So, yeah, just trying to show like a decent number of options. Yeah, okay. So that's there. It's not a full bank of acceptable solutions, but it's a decent number of them. So let's now, we can maybe have another one, or maybe we've already created this one. So I just look for L before T. So A is out. V and W have to be next to each other. So D is out. We have to have 2 separating T and M. So M space T, yep. T space M. Here we have T space M. So we just have Los Angeles between them. And then V and L have to be separated by 2. So V and L here are separated by 3, Washington, Toronto, and New York. So B is the correct answer. So VW, oh, and we don't have this one, so we can add this to our bank. So VW, MLMT, so MT, VL. Really, yeah, here they're just switching the position of M and T. So it's very similar to this solution. The only difference is that, yeah, V and M are switched. Oh, wait. Sorry, I messed that up. Yeah, I completely messed that up. I messed up the first rule. That's not allowed. Yeah, T has to be before L. Yeah, I messed that up. Okay, sorry. So that must mean that the one that I eliminated based on that rule, which is this one here, that one is correct. So this one is out, but I eliminated this one based on rule 1. So T, V, W, M, L, N. Okay, so V and W are together. We have T before M, separated by 2, V before L, separated by 2, T before L is that rule. Okay, so that's the one. Yikes. Almost made quite an error there. And this one is nicely, it's significantly different from what I have. So I didn't make that error in my other acceptable solutions. Now this is why I shouldn't rush the first question, and you shouldn't either. So anybody can make this kind of error, right? Like it's just a quick mistake in your head, right? Of like looking at this and seeing L before T and like that mix up. So what I should have been doing is I should have been saying, oh, okay, T before L. Like I should have read this carefully, right? L has to be some year after T, and looked up here and gone, oh, T before L, and looked for the one that breaks that rule. But also I should have applied it to every single answer choice so that I could see the odd one out. Because when you do that, you see that this is T before L is the common one, right? So we see T before L in 4 of the answer choices. There's only one where we see L before T. So that's the odd one out. Sorry, that's an error. So yeah, that's the odd one out, and that's the only one that breaks this rule. So typically we can eliminate one rule breaker per rule in the first question. And so that can help with like a misinterpretation. So maybe not only did I make that mistake in the question, I actually made it in the rule at the beginning, right? When I was writing it out. So that would be a way to make sure that I didn't make that mistake going forward with the rest of the questions. Yeah. Okay, so that is the correct answer, and we can move on. Okay, which one of the following must be true? Toronto is used in the first year. No, we have other examples. Montreal in the 4th year. No, we have other examples. Toronto is used sometime before Montreal is used. Nope. New York is used either immediately before or immediately after Vancouver. Nope. The meeting in New York is separated from the meeting in Washington by meetings in exactly 2 other cities. New York, Washington, New York, Washington, New York, Washington, New York, Washington. Ooh, yep, cool. So yeah, that's kind of neat to recognize that. It's great to have that bank of acceptable solutions to get rid of those guys. There is exactly one possible order in which the cities are used if which one of the following is true. This is the same as one of those fully determined questions. Okay, so it's the order is fully determined. If which one of the following is true would mean the same exact thing. Okay, so if L is in the 5th year, that tells me V is in the 2nd year, but I think I would still have options there. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that one, but just to show the other option. So if L is in the 5th year, then I know that it's there. And I know that T has to be before L. So I could have TM or MT though. So yeah, we have a TM version, but we could have this version. And then we would have a W here and N here. So that at least gives us another option to show. Right. So it's really just this option, except we switch the positions of M and T. Okay, so that doesn't fully determine. Montreal is used in the 6th year. M, T, T before L. Could put L further out and then V and then W first. Yes, I think I could. So I was just doing that in my head, but I'm like manipulating this answer here. Or sorry, should be manipulating the 4th one there. So we've got, oh no, sorry, the 3rd one, Montreal in the 6th year. So this 3rd solution here is the one that I'm manipulating here to see if that's the only possibility where M is last, or if I could switch it up. So if I put M last, what do I know for sure? Well, I know that T has to be 2 away. I do know that T has to be before L, and I have an example where L is right after T. Maybe I could put L here, W, and yeah, that would be fine as well. So another acceptable solution, and we know that this one here isn't going to fully determine. N is 5th. I have 2 examples where N is 5th. V is 1st. Do I have more than one example of that? I do not. And that one is interesting because if V is 1st, that tells me where W is. So that's helpful. And we do know from that other question, right, that if V is 1st, okay, V is 1st means that L has to be there, T has to be before L, so T has no choice but to be there. And then what do we have here? Well, we have to have N, so that we have 2 between T and M, and that's the only solution. That's the same as the one that I have up there. There's no other way to do it. So D is the correct answer. Yeah. Okay, cool. I really like this game. This is like, it's a harder sequencing game. I kind of, yeah, I just sort of enjoy that. Okay, which one of the following is complete and accurate list of years in which W could be used? So W could be 6th. So we can eliminate A and B because we see W 6th here. W can be 2nd. Okay, that's in all of them. W can be 3rd. So 3rd has to be on the list, and W can be 1st. So based on our bank of acceptable solutions, E has to be the correct answer. W could be anywhere. Now, even though we don't have an example of W being 4th or W being 5th, because none of the other solutions include all 3 of 1st, 3rd, and 6th, which we do have as options, or 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th, then we know that it has to be E, even though we haven't proven that 4 and 5 have to be options, but we could do those worlds as well and add more to our bank of acceptable solutions. But I'm probably not going to bother doing that at that point for the sake of time. If Montreal is used in the 1st year, we do have 2 examples of that. Which one of the following cannot be true? W is used in the 3rd year. We have an example of that. V in the 3rd year. We have an example of that. T in the 4th year. Well, that has to be true, right? If M is 1st, T has to be 4th. N in the 5th year, we don't, or no, we do have an example of that. M 1st and N 5th, yep. We have an example of that. So it's got to be L can't be 3rd. Yeah. And why not? Well, because then T wouldn't be before L, right? So T would have to be 4th if M is 1st. So L can't be before T. Okay, which one of the following could be true? L is used in the first year. No. Okay, so sorry, could be true. Yeah, so this can't be true. That one's out. Can't be true because of the first rule. N is in the second year. Interesting. We don't have an example of that. I'm just going to leave it for now. M third, we don't have an example of that. V fourth, we don't have an example of that. And T sixth, we don't have an example of that. Wow. Okay. So even with our 6 solutions, we were only able to, yeah, we don't have an example of any of these. So we can't solve this based on our acceptable solutions. N second. So that would mean W is 5th. I don't see why I wouldn't be able to make this work. T has to be before L. So I could have T M. Ooh. Yeah, L V. Right? Any issue with that? L has to be after T. Got that. V and W have to be side by side. Got that. T space space M, L space space V. Yeah, that is allowed. Okay, so N can be second. But apparently, yeah, M can't be third. Oh, that makes sense, right? Because T has to be 2 away from it. V fourth would put L first. Doesn't work. T sixth would, yeah. So actually, these guys I should have recognized can't work because of the T before L rule. And M used third can't work because it has to have 2 spaces and then T. So yeah, that's not gonna, or no, wait, so M third, we would have T last. Yeah, so actually they all kind of boil down to T has to be before L. Which one must be false? L is immediately before or immediately after N. Must be false. No, that can happen. L immediately before, immediately after W. See any example of that, which makes sense because the relationship between L and W is like they are connected through V, right? So if we have L space space V, and then W is on either side of V, it's never going to be right beside L, right? So no matter what, there's always going to be a space between, at least one space between L and W. So it's got to be B. Okay, so I'm going to end this, and hopefully I haven't made any mistakes. And I can actually complete the section, and yeah. So any of the mistakes that I made, I was able to catch them. So that's it. And it did take an hour and 20 minutes to actually go through all of that. Now, of course, that's what you're doing in like a blind review scenario is kind of what you would be doing here. And of course, I'm going on tangents and I'm talking out loud and stuff. So I'm going to be going a lot slower than in the real thing. If you'd like to watch me do a section sometime in real time, I would do that. Maybe I will make a point of doing that just to see. Might be helpful, might not be. I won't be able to like comment over it. Maybe I could do it in real time and then do it, discussing it. And I could do a section that like I've done all of the games before, except there are in the newest sections, I haven't necessarily done those ones yet because I have been super busy and I love doing the new tests, but I've only done the ones that students have specifically asked me about. So I haven't actually completed all of the games and like all the questions in all of those games, but I probably have set them up for students somewhat recently. I just can't recall exactly, but yeah, maybe I'll do one of these sections under your time pressure and record it just to show like what my scrap paper actually looks like. So I won't use the annotate function either, which is a Zoom function, not a LawHub function. But I'll just use my scrap paper like I would on a real test and record that as well, and put them together, or just record myself doing it on the scrap paper, and then you can look at the test on LawHub. That would probably be a better way to go. Yeah. Okay. Cool. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there's anything you want me to clarify, I'd be happy to do so. And I'll try to remember to put timestamps in so that you can go from game to game and not have to listen to me ramble every time. That might be helpful. Okay. Anyways, have a good one. Let me know if there's any other section that you would like me to do in full. I don't